So good morning, everybody. Every year or once in a while, we have to do a 12 powers talk. And we do it mainly because I have a 12 power scarf to wear. I said it's all the colors except for gold and silver. And some kind person reminded me I have silver hair. And I said I have gold in my teeth too. So there you are. Believe it or not. So I'm going to start with a little story, which I often do. And this was an inspiration to me because I just really resonated with Diane Cirincione and Jerry Jampolsky, who over the years worked so hard with A Course in Miracles and then went on and founded attitudinal healing centers all over the country, worked mostly with children suffering from cancer and their families, and finding peace in the midst of situations that looked dire, if not just totally devastating. So Diane and Jerry started working together quite a while before they were married. And she writes this, she says, almost 40 years ago, I very reluctantly agreed to join my husband, Dr. Jerry Jampolsky, to present an all-day workshop at the University of California in Irvine. As the day grew closer, I became more and more nervous. He was a degreed psychiatrist, and I had not yet returned to school to get my degrees in psychology. I felt incredibly inadequate and unsure of anything I had to say to a large group. We arrived at the campus and sat outside for a few minutes, waiting to enter. Someone handed me a flyer, and I saw immediately that my name was not included, even though bioinformation had been sent to the organizers. I immediately turned and said to Jerry in an elevated, defiant voice, "My name is not on there. There is no way I am going on that stage." Sitting next to me, Jerry thought for a moment and then said in a quiet voice, "You know, Diane, even if your name isn't on the flyer, you would not have to go in there." I adamantly replied, "Well, I am not going in there." Jerry was quiet for another moment and then said, "Diane, can I ask you a question?" I replied in my fear-filled petulance, "What?" He then said, "Why did you come here today?" I closed my eyes and went inside. The answer I got with great clarity was, I came here in love. Jerry looked deeply into my eyes and said, "Are you capable of giving love?" I replied with quiet confidence, "Yes, I can do that." Then he said the words that were to change my life. He said, "That is all you will ever be required to do." That's all we are ever required to do, is to be here to give love in whatever way, whatever form, whatever person or people or situations we're being asked to give love to. That's it. We're here to give love. Interesting that I don't know how many of you noticed in the Advent booklet, as always, they have on the day after Christmas, they begin a walk through the 12 powers. And the power for today is, believe it or not, love. They do the 12 days of Christmas, tying them to the 12 powers. And the power for today is love, as I said. So I think it's really appropriate that we review the 12 powers, one of the foundational teachings of unity. It's one of the kind of confusing teachings of unity because it's like, what? 12 powers? We have a power of the month and a color of the month. And what is this all about? Well, Charles Fillmore, as one of our founders in Unity, believed that we were given 12 powers, that in each one of us, they are powers of the divine, traits, whatever we want to call them. We have them innately within us. He did a lot of looking at the Bible and meditating and praying and studying, trying to understand what the 12 representatives that Jesus picked, Jesus called to him, the 12 disciples, which one of the powers they each represented. And he tied them together with 12 centers in our bodies. And he said that it is important for all of us to call forth those 12 powers. We may need only to call on one if when we pray or meditate, we are told which one of the powers we need to call upon. It could be the power of faith or the power of strength or the power of wisdom, the power of love, the power of power or dominion, the power of imagination, understanding, will, order, zeal, release, or life. But we will be told or led to strengthen that particular power in our lives, depending upon the circumstances that we find ourselves in. He felt these powers were hardwired within each one of us. He may not have used that phrase, that's an updated phrase. From the Advent booklet. If you didn't get an Advent booklet and you'd like to follow along with the 12 powers for the remainder of our season of Epiphany, there's a few more booklets by the door, so please help yourself, because you really don't, I think just reading each day's power is incredibly important, and it helps us identify where we are and which power is going to benefit us the most. It's interesting. In the book, The Healing Tapestry, that we've been studying in our Tuesday book group, David McClure has a wonderful story about the 12 powers as well. And see if I'm in the right place. Probably not. Yeah, that's that funny story about don't despair. You ought to read this book. So David McClure says that number 12 symbolizes wholeness and completion. The number 12 is found in 187 places in the Bible. For instance, Jacob had 12 sons. Ishmael had 12 princes. God specified that 12 unleavened cakes of bread were to be placed in the temple every week. And Jesus had 12 disciples. There are 12 months of the year, 12 signs of the zodiac. 12 is present in a lot of ways throughout our cultures, throughout history. David McClure tells a wonderful story about the 12th man concept. David, the whole book is the story of him healing himself from advanced cancer and realizing in the midst, even though he was really working with all the medical people and doing all the things they told him to do, chemotherapy, radiation therapy, et cetera, he still found himself falling into what he calls MS and T, moping, sulking, and tribulating. And he found himself one Sunday after giving the sermon at Unity in Spokane, feeling he had done a terrible job. He was so despondent and so depressed, and went home and fell into his usual chair and started going ahead with MST, moping, sulking, and tribulating. And then something happened. He turned on the television to watch his favorite team, the Seattle Seahawks, who were getting beaten badly. And then an amazing thing happened. All of a sudden, in the fourth quarter, the fans, the Seattle Seahawks fans, caught fire. And they started screaming and yelling and urging their team on and just carrying on. And they actually encouraged the team so much that they got touchdowns in the last few minutes of the quarter, the last quarter, and won the game. And David McClure realized he was standing up and yelling and screaming as well with the team. And he was so engaged and so enthusiastic. And it was the 12th man phenomenon, they call it, that the fans can be the 12th part of the team when they are encouraging their team to get with it. And so Seattle actually made a deal to be able to use that 12th man concept. That inspired David McClure to do what he called getting himself a 12th man team to work while he was undergoing these cancer treatments. And he put out a plea on Facebook. He called on his prayer team at Spokane Unity. He called on the prayer team of the Greater Unity Movement. He called on the prayer chaplains at the hospital where his wife Donna worked as a chaplain. He called on everybody he knew and asked them to be part of his 12th man team and to just keep his healing in mind, seeing him as the whole perfect child of God that he knew he was in truth. And lo and behold, David, this was over 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I think. David McClure is still working, writing, speaking in Spokane. He's a minister emeritus, but he worked on this book and for several years and brought it to publication. He's an inspiration, and that 12th man team has definitely inspired many, many people, including his wife, Donna, who was diagnosed with cancer herself a few months after he was. And they both now are free and clear and have been just doing remarkable work. Well, this story, as I said, inspired me so much. I want each one of you to know, indeed, you have a 12th man team yourself here at Unity of Missoula. We have our prayer chaplains who pray with you all the time. We have our prayer circle that prays for whoever has prayer requests in the prayer box. We have the powerofunity.org praying with us every month or every, whenever. We have lots and lots of prayer power that goes into our 12th man team. And of course, we have the ability to call on our 12 powers. Linda Martella Whitsett also writes about 12 powers in her book, Divine Audacity, which is another book that we've read here as a book group. I'm thinking we need to start another book group and do some more 12 powers study. So maybe that'll be happening. Linda Martella Whitsitt says there are 3 parts to the 12 power discipline lessons. The first one is we need to realize that all 12 of our spiritual abilities or powers share one source, and that source is God or higher power or divine wisdom or divine, just creator, whatever word you want to use for God. That's where your spiritual powers, abilities come from. God is love. God is wisdom. God is understanding. God is strength. And because, as Charles Fillmore told us, we have that spark of the divine within us, we are also love, wisdom, peace, strength, power, understanding, imagination, etc. She says also all 12 of our spiritual abilities are inherent. We come into being, even as a tiny baby, loaded with those 12 powers. I read something, I think it was in the Advent booklet about strength, yesterday's Power with Strength. And it said to look at the strength of a baby. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't look at a baby as having much strength. But they pointed out that babies have the power of strength to keep the rest of us awake if we're in the middle of the night, to let us know that they're hungry, that they need attention, that they need, whatever it is that that baby knows it needs. It has the strength to let us know that something is wrong. And so those 12 powers are inherent even at the beginning of our lives. However, all 12 of them are latent. They are just within us in potential until they are recognized, activated, and developed. She says that the way to develop the 12 powers is the way that Charles Fillmore told us to activate. And that is through study, prayer, meditation, and reliance on our infinite self, tapping into our greater power. That's where the affirmations come in. When you stop and wait and listen and pray and ask, even just to be shown which one of the powers do I need to tap into right now. Diane and Jerry Jampolsky had used a quote from A Course in Miracles. Whenever they were getting ready to go into a place to be of service, whether it was through speaking or working with families or whatever it was they were called upon to do, and they would stop and affirm together, I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here only to be truly helpful. I do not have to wonder what to say or what to do because you who are within me will direct me. I am content to be wherever you need me to be, knowing that you go there with me. And I will be healed as I let your power heal me and heal others. So the tradition at Unity with the 12 Powers celebration is that we light each candle in order that Charles Fillmore wrote them in his book, The 12 Powers. It's interesting the way that book developed too, in that he wasn't just given immediately 12 powers. They kind of evolved through several writings and several months at least of working with them. And he worked with his second wife, Cora, to finally come up with a definitive list of the 12 powers. And so we have, at my favorite service, I'm sorry, you have to indulge me, is because I love the rainbow colors and just the power inherent in seeing all 12 of those candles lit and just feeling that within myself, the answering spark shows up. And so we're going to do a 12 powers candle lighting. I've got 3 people who are going to come up and help light the powers as I read which each color candle, which representatives or disciples. We have not only Charles's 12, Jesus's 12 disciples that Charles assigned to each of the 12 powers, but we also use a feminine representative so that we have both masculine and feminine representatives for powers. I don't like to let us ladies out, leave us out of any celebration. So I'm hoping, I don't know how this is going to work real well for the people on Zoom. I apologize if it seems kind of confusing and you miss some of the words. I will try to make sure that I say the part about the color of the candle, the power, and the disciples. And then Kathy Franzreb, Roger Harvey, and Laura Bloom. Hey, I can't leave out Laura. She are going to come up and take turns lighting the candles as I read. I think I'll move this podium and move just a little bit out. And so we can share this microphone a bit. Would the 3 of you come up, please? And all 12 of the candles are lit to begin with the light of the Christ candle that is shining in the center. And that's again to remind each of us that it is the Christ light within us that illuminates our lives. So the first candle is the blue candle, the color of faith. It's a dark blue. And this candle represents Mary, the mother of Jesus, and the disciple Peter.
I light this candle to strengthen my faith.
The light green candle, the color of strength, represents Judith and the disciple Andrew.
I light this candle for the power of strength.
The yellow candle, the color of wisdom, represents Deborah the judge and James the son of Zebedee.
I light this candle for wisdom.
The pink candle, the color of love, represents Mary Magdalene and the disciple John.
I light this candle for the power of love.
The purple candle, the color of power, represents Miriam and the disciple Philip.
for divine power.
The light blue candle, the color of imagination, represents the woman with the oil and the disciple Bartholomew.
I try to light this candle for imagination.
I imagine you're lighting the candle. The gold candle, the color of understanding, represents Huldah the prophetess and the disciple Thomas.
I light this candle to help me be understanding.
The silver candle, the color of will, represents Sarah and the disciple Matthew.
I light this candle for willingness.
The dark green candle, the color of order, represents Rebecca and James, the son of Alphaeus.
I light this candle for order.
The orange candle, the color of zeal, represents the Samaritan woman at the well and Simon the Zealot.
I light this candle for zeal. Be zealous in your process of lighting candles.
The brown candle, the color of release, represents Ruth and the disciple Thaddeus.
I light this candle to help me let go.
The red candle, the color of life, represents Eve and the disciple Judas Iscariot.
I light this candle for the beauty of life.
You may be seated. And so I invite you to each one of you, just focus on the candles. Hopefully you can see them around me. Whoops. We're just not having too much luck with zeal today. Times to break them down, oh, like refuge. We are part of that we are each one of us. That we have that we have faith. That we know we are filled with the divine power. We can use our imagination. Help make the world a better. That we are willing to extend understanding. We are zealous, filled with zeal to live a life of purpose and of love. And we gently release and let go of all the things that do not serve us, knowing that they will be replaced with greater power. And most of all, we give thanks for this life. This opportunity to grow and love and find joy together. We're willing to embrace the peace of God because we know that is the truth of who we are right here, right now, in this room. The Lord on this stage of trust, right? Right. One of my powers who I'm most healing in this moment. The power that we have. That we have this beautiful place that we know of as Unity of Museum. That we have all these wonderful people in our lives who are our 12th man on our team. Just know all the love. Thank you. Pray together a prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. We are the light. The love of God enfolds us. We are the love. The power of God protects us. We are the power. And the presence of God watches over us. We are the presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. We are one.